What if just 3 simple camera settings could turn your rejected photos into selling portfolio? You have right there, you are out there taking picture, but for some reason they just are not selling on stock sites and you have the problem make some little money there. It's so frustrating to pour your effort into a shoot only to have the images get lost in a sea of content, or even worse, get rejected for a technical reason. Well, in this video, I am pulling back the curtain on the 3 essential camera settings that pro stock photographers rely on to create clean, sharp, and profitable images. These are not just theories, these are the practical settings that will get your photo accepted and noticed. The quality for foundation is ISO. Let's get into it, and the first and maybe most important setting for stock photography is your ISO on your camera. Think of ISO as your camera sensitivity to light, but more importantly, think of it as your best defense against the images getting rejected. Here is why. A high ISO creates digital noise, which looks like that ugly grainy texture in your photos. Stock agencies really don't like this noise because their clients need perfectly clean files to work with. A noisy images just doesn't scream professional. It really looks very boring when you look at the images like that. So what is the pro move? It is simple. Keep your ISO as low as your camera will naturally go, which is almost always 100, maybe 200. But don't forget, in today's digital camera you can go much higher. If you are shooting in bright sun or with studio lights, looking in at ISO 100, it's the single best things you can do for images clarity. Now, if you are in darker environment, don't just immediately crank up to the ISO. Maybe it's better area reach for your tripod. This can help you with the stability and lets you adjust other settings to let more light in, all while keeping your ISO low and your images quality pristine. Next up is aperture, the setting that controls the creative style and commercial appeal of your shoot. It's your aperture, or f-stop. Determines how much of your images is in focus, what we call depth of field. Nailing this is critical because it dictates how a potential buyer can actually use your photo. Professional photographers tend to think about this in 2 different ways. For a lifestyle or portrait shoots with people, they often go for a wide aperture, which is a low f-stop number. Think something like f2.8 or 4 or maybe 5 and above. This gives you that shallow depth of fields, making your subject pop while the background melts away into a beautiful blur. It is really a classic look that feels polished and immediately draws the viewer's eye. For other popular stock categories like landscapes, architectural photography, or product shoots, professionals do the exact opposite. They will use a narrow aperture, which is a higher f-stop, and this means f8 or f11. This creates a deep of fields, keeping everything sharp from the front of the scene all the way to the back. This will make the photo really incredibly versatile for a buyer. They know they can crop in and use any part of the images because everything will be probably pretty sharp. An image with more in focus often has more ways it can be used, and that means more commercial potential. Number 3 is the sharpness, shutter speed, and that brings us to our third pro setting, the one that solves the mystery of blurry photos. If you've ever had an images rejected for being soft, your shutter speed was probably the problem. Shutter speed determines how long your sensor is exposed to light, and its main job here is to eliminate motion blur and guarantee a sharp photo. For any shoot with a person, moving object, or even just the tiny shake from holding your camera, pros use a fast shutter speed. A great rule of thumb is to stay at around 125 of a second or faster. This will freeze any motion and make sure your subject is perfectly crisp. This is working mostly for posing people. Really, for moving subject, you need definitely much faster speed. A good guideline is to set your shutter speed to be at least as fast as your lens, focal length, to avoid camera shake. This means if you have 200mm lens, your shutter speed is supposed to be 1/200 So keep this in your mind. So what about these still scenes like landscape or product shoot? This is where the tripod become your really the best friends again. By putting your camera on tripod, you can use a much slower shutter speed to get the perfect exposure, especially with the narrow aperture we just talked about, without adding any blur from your hands. The pro formula is simple: a low ISO, a narrow aperture, and the tripod. That is the secret to those incredibly sharp and detailed images that stock agency absolutely love. So let's bring it all together. The three settings that will make a huge difference in your stock photography are low ISO. I recommend stick to 100 or 200, but I said with today's camera you can go definitely higher, and 400 can definitely work even more. Depends on the situation what you're shooting. Aperture, use a wider aperture like f4 for portraits where you want to subject to pop out, and narrower one like f8, f11, and maybe a little bit more for landscapes and products photography that need to be really sharp all over. Shutter speed, stay above 1/125 second to freeze motion, and if you have to go slower, use a tripod. But remember, for moving object, definitely you can go much higher, 1/500 seconds and even more. Getting comfortable with how these three settings work together is what separates snapshot from commercially successful stock photos. So don't just watch this video, get out there and keep practicing until all feels like second nature for you. Thank you for watching, and I hope so this will help you. But I said this, don't keep this like a rules. Keep this just more like a direction where to start, because every situation is really different and really depends which lens you are using. If you have wide lens or telephoto lens, you need definitely different setting for depth field and different shutter speed. This is definitely the best number for starting for better images. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope so I will see you soon on my channel.